they so messed up space-wise? Wait, which one? Arena and Layton? Good?
No, wait, actually, sorry. Layton, let's go back. It needs to be the same order, just flipped.
Wait, what do you mean?
If I didn't have a skirt on, this carrying it.
Okay, I don't understand what you're saying.
Okay, now take these two, put them on that side. I don't know why it has to be this way, but it does.
Like this?
No, leave Arena over there.
Leave who?
Leave Arena. Okay.
So just these two?
Yeah, and then, there you go.
Okay.
But, I mean, you want to stay right. Why?
Good morning. We are currently handing out press releases. In that press release packet, we have the complaint that was filed this morning, as well as several other documents you all may be interested in. We are about 2 minutes out from the AG and the rest of our speakers coming in. If you have any questions, we will have time for Q&A at the end. Are we all good with sound? If I can get a thumbs up from guys in the back here. Awesome, excellent. All right, just give me 1 moment and we'll be right back.
Council. True ones. Already your counterparts comes in.
Sneaky.
Amy's before you. Hi, Amy. Hi, Chris.
Well, that's cool. I just checked Amy's TMA and I think it says Detroit. Nebraska corporation is very bottom of the pretty much it's seems to be very hard. Simply list.
Well, good morning. Everybody set back there? All right, yeah, set? Great, great. Well, good morning. You know, several weeks ago, our team announced criminal charges against 3 individuals involved in the Flint water crisis. Our criminal investigation is ongoing. And as I stated and as I guaranteed, more charges to come, so stay tuned. Now today I'm announcing civil charges against 2 companies involved in the Flint water crisis. Now many things went tragically wrong in Flint, and both criminal conduct and civil conduct caused harm to the families of Flint and to the taxpayers of Michigan. We are charging Veolia, a French-based global company, with negligence, fraud, and public nuisance for its actions and its failures to act responsibly, which contributed to the water in Flint being poisoned. Veolia is the largest provider of comprehensive water and wastewater services to cities and industrial users in the world. We are charging LAN, a Texas corporation, which does business in Michigan, with negligence and public nuisance for their actions and failures to act responsibly and contributed to the water in Flint being poisoned. Look at it this way. If you think your roof leaks, what do? You ask a professional for an inspection of your roof, an opinion as to how you might solve the problem and fix it, maybe a leak. And you expect the roofer to do the job and to do it right, to perform. In Flint, Veolia and Land were hired to do a job and failed miserably. They failed miserably in their job, basically botched it, didn't stop the water in Flint from being poisoned. They made it worse. That's what they did. A bit of history, some chemistry, and a timeline might help here. The city of Flint's water treatment plant is nearly 100 years old. It was built in 1917 and provided water from the Flint River for families and industrial users for 50 years. In 1967, water to Flint was provided by a contract with the city of Detroit using Lake Huron water. Land was hired by officials in Flint in 2011 to study and review the feasibility of using the Flint water treatment plant for water supply for Flint residents and industrial users. In the summer of 2013, Land was hired to upgrade and help operate the water treatment plant using Flint River. The switch from Lake Huron water to Flint River water occurred on April 25, 2014. Land botched the job. Failed to help operate the water treatment plant without any, let me repeat, without any corrosion control program. This meant that lead leached into the water that would go to your home, poisoning the water. By the way, adding phosphate, which is an anti-corrosive, would have cost less than $200 a day. And here's the definition of botched. It's not a highly technical legal term, let me tell you. Here's the definition of botched. Within weeks, the water upon which Flint families relied was brown, was discolored, tasted awful, and smelled. No surprise, eh? E. coli levels skyrocketed, and boil water advisories were issued by the city of Flint. Right here, in the Department of Environmental Quality of the state of Michigan issued advisory that rates of trihalomethane, THM, in Flint water had exceeded safety levels. Now, trihalomethane is a byproduct of chlorine disinfection, and high rates indicate excessive chlorine. This screw-up increased the corrosion of Flint water pipes, again causing lead to poison the water. There's an advisory just issued yesterday in Flint as well. So this is an ongoing problem, right? Now, in October of 2014, General Motors announced that it would no longer use Flint River water in its manufacturing operations because the water was corroding GM's products. This GM announcement should have been the final red alert, DEFCON 1, for anyone and any entity in a position of direct responsibility. But this alarm bell fell on deaf, negligent ears. As time went on, reports of dangerous and escalating lead levels in the water right here at U of M Flint and in people's homes were publicly being reported. Enter Veolia. On February 4th of 2015, Veolia was hired as Flint's water quality consultant, hired to fix the problems at the water treatment plant. Veolia issued an interim report on February 18th of 2015 that completely misrepresented the quality of the Flint water. Veolia stated that while, quote, discoloration in water may be, quote, unappealing, the water is, quote, safe. Let me repeat that. Veolia stated that the water, quote, was safe. Also, Veolia callously and fraudulently dismissed medical and health concerns by stating that, quote, some people may be sensitive to any water. Can you believe that? Tell that to a pregnant woman carrying her unborn child whose bones, brains, kidneys can be severely damaged because of lead poisoning. The lead stays in the bones. It's passed to the next generation. Think about that. I bet you Veolia didn't drink the Flint water. Look at it. Look, you know. And finally, Veolia's March 12, 2015 report recommended the addition of ferric chloride, an acid, to the water supply. Tragically, this fraudulent and dangerous recommendation simply enhanced the corrosion of the pipes, which caused more lead to enter the water system, poisoning families in Flint. In other words, Veolia made a bad situation worse. The more I discover and decipher the who, what, where, when, how of this Flint water crisis, the angrier I become. I am asked, well, aren't there a lot of lead pipes everywhere? And my response is this: while that may be true, the difference in Flint is that people committed crimes, and a global company and a Texas company botched the job of providing safe drinking water. That is the tragic story of Flint. Now let me close. We have two teams, a criminal team and a civil team, a tremendous team. We have two teams pulling one wagon, and that wagon is justice for the families of Flint. These charges today, the previous criminal charges, and the additional charges to come are an effort and a pathway to rebuild and restore trust and confidence in government to families of Flint and indeed to families and taxpayers throughout the state of Michigan. I'm going to turn it over now to Noah Hall, who is an expert in environmental law, is leading our civil team and the charges that were filed this morning in the Genesee County Circuit Court. Noah?
Thank you, Attorney General.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Attorney General, and thank you, Todd Flood, and the rest of our team for really giving me the opportunity to come on board and become a member of this team. It's frankly just a tremendous honor to be a part of the effort to bring justice to the people of Michigan and represent the people of the state of Michigan in this lawsuit. What happened in Flint, what happened to Flint, is a tragedy that at some level lawyers can't undo. We can't get the lead out of kids' blood. We can't take the effects of poisoning out of the families that have been affected. But what we can do as attorneys is figure out who's responsible, hold them accountable, and collect damages so that the people of Michigan and the state of Michigan can provide the kind of services needed to help this community recover from the devastating impacts of lead poisoning. The negligence of these companies, the fraud committed by these companies, is going to create lasting damage. And it's going to be costly damage. And what we hope to do with this suit, and what we fully intend to prevail, is to recover sufficient funds to allow the state to provide services, education, health care, new infrastructure to not just put Flint back on its feet, but to help it really succeed in the future and help all the folks affected succeed in the future. I'm going to be available to answer as many questions as you have about the details of the suit. It represents a tremendous team effort, and perhaps notably, throughout the suit, we've relied extensively on information that's available publicly, largely due to the efforts of many of you filling this room today. When I say this has been a team effort, I mean that term team quite broadly. I think a lot of folks in Michigan have stepped up to help respond to this crisis. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me turn it over to Todd Flood, our special counsel, who's been doing a tremendous job on our criminal side, and as I mentioned, more to come. Todd?
Thank you. Thank you, Attorney General. The teams complement each other. The teams are one in the sense that we work together and we complement each other going forward. When you think about this case and you start to peel back the layers of the onion, you come to realize something. These kids were drinking from a lead straw. They were drinking from when you have to get action to the city, when you got 15 parts per billion. There were houses that had 104 parts per billion, 700 parts per billion of lead. Drink the lead straw. So what happened, Veolia, when we say fraud, and we are going after Veolia on a civil complaint to gain funds to help rebuild and take care of the state of Michigan and the city of Flint. What happened is they shunned and turned their responsibility away from the citizens for the almighty buck and got a contract. This team, led by Noah Hall, who I am very excited to work with, the students he teaches at Wayne State are very lucky. We're very fortunate to have them. We have Gary Reeves and Don Sheff, two amazing civil lawyers that are on the team as well, that are working exclusively a lot with Noah. Andy Arena and Ellis Stafford here today, they are walking arm in arm with all of us. So, all that being said, I will continue to investigate and prosecute. The Attorney General has given me this charge. This vehicle we have here in front of you today is just part of what we're doing, and we will continue to do our investigation and hold those criminally responsible to the forefront. Thank you, Mr. General.
I'm going to have David Layton, our outstanding prosecutor from Genesee County, make a statement. After that, we'll take any questions you have. And David is a key member of the team. He and I are simpatico. We work hand in hand, and he is an outstanding leader here in Flint and the region, and I'm delighted to work with him. David?
Thank you, General.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I just want to make a quick statement here, and that is that I've used civil actions in my tenure now with great success, and the civil action is an important arrow in the quiver of a prosecutor. We have locally filed multiple public nuisance actions over the years, holding business entities responsible for their actions. And I'm aware that in other municipalities, lawyers there have also, on behalf of the government, sued for environmental disasters. One example that I read about recently was in Berkeley, California, where lawyers for the city sued Monsanto for discharging chemicals allegedly into the waterways there. So I want to applaud the Attorney General for taking this action. This is a creative step that, in accompany to the criminal case, will also help the people of the city of Flint, and it's further indication that he's going to see that no stone is left unturned, and even businesses and corporations will be held accountable for what has happened here in Flint. Let me close with this, because I live here. I live in Flint Township, but I work in the city of Flint every day. I see the suffering. I see the local people who can't drink the water, who can't bathe in the water, who are worried for the health of their children. They come into the courthouse in which I work every single day. I see them as I walk down Saginaw Street. This is a real disaster for the people that live in this county and this community and the city of Flint. And it's very difficult to put into words how hard it must be to wake up every day and know that you can't take a shower in your home, that you can't drink the water, that you worry that your child may not develop as you had expected, that you may have endless trips to a physician or to a clinic to help your kids. So this is going to be a long haul, but I think that the Attorney General has it right. He's going to hold everybody and anybody responsible for what has happened to our city. Thank you so much.
General. Happy to take any questions from members of the press. Yes, sir.
Mr. Attorney General, there were similar lawsuits filed in Washington, D.C. in 2004, and some of those are still being litigated. While every lawsuit is different, what's a reasonable expectation for the people of Flint to find a conclusion to this case?
You know, lots of lawsuits are filed, and you're correct that every lawsuit is different. We're going to be very aggressive about this, and this is an effort. You know, a lot of money from the state of Michigan is going into Flint, as it should be. Let me repeat, as it should be, because we need to help the families, infrastructure, nutrition, education, list goes on and on and on. But there are also, these two companies, Veolia and Land, are there consequences when you've caused harm. And their negligence and their failure to act and their activity, it contributed to the poisoning of the water in Flint. There's a consequence to that, and I liken this to the BP spill in the Gulf, where our trust fund was put together. And this needs to be a trust fund of some sort when we're done, and we'll prove the damages, as Noah said, and we want this to be available for nutrition, infrastructure, health, what have you, and the taxpayers of Michigan deserve this, and this is a taxpayer protection effort as well to help the families of Flint, but also recompense the citizens of the state of Michigan.
Again, Attorney General, are we talking years or decades? I know you can't narrow it down.
Yeah, it's, yes, this will take some time. This is not an overnight issue. But the point is, this is important for the citizens of Flint and the taxpayers of Michigan.
How much money are we talking?
It could be hundreds of millions. We'll prove our damages. Yes, sir.
General, on Veolia specifically, they were hired to look at the city's water system with TTHM and boil water advisories. I don't think lead was an issue at that time. How can you say that they contributed to?
The fact is, this is a firm that is a global giant, that is the largest water treatment and wastewater treatment company in the world, and they were hired to solve the problems, fix the problems stated in a website. Go to the website. It says, quote, the water is, quote, safe. And the point is that they failed in their duty, and then when they recommended ferric chloride, which is an acid, and all that did is contribute to the corrosion, it was a huge problem, and that's the liability.
Can I?
Sure.
Todd?
It's an excellent question, although frankly I think there's an assumption built into that question that's not accurate, which is that they didn't have reason to know about lead at the time of their interim report. I think that's plain wrong. The exact same day that Veolia was here in Flint giving an interim report to the Flint City Council telling the people of Flint that the water was safe, not only were they telling them that they were going to study the violations of THM and E. coli that gave rise to the boil water advisories, Veolia said we're going to take a comprehensive look at the entire water system. We're going to figure out everything from intake to people's faucets to learn the extent of the problem and what needs to be done. And that very same day that Veolia was giving their PowerPoint dog and pony show to the people of Flint, Leanne Walters had the water in her home tested by the city of Flint at over 100 parts per billion. The exact same day. So there's no way that Veolia can now rewrite history and say that we didn't know or had no reason to know about lead in people's homes. Several public officials saw the warning signs and at least knew to ask about the potential of lead from the corroded pipes. They thought enough to get a sample, run a simple test. Leanne Walters got those results back 2 days later. And those results were publicly notified before Veolia finalized its report to the city of Flint in March.
That's exactly right, but also to complement that thought, they're hired to know. They're pros, and they were hired to know. And on top of that, the MDEQ was the one that was releasing the reports of the lead in the water. And they had the lead in the water released prior to them giving their report. So Leanne Walters had her house tested multiple times. On that particular day, it just so happened that was tested for the second of 104 parts per billion. So at the end of all of that, these people took the money, put out in front of everyone that they are supposed to know and they're pros, and they turned a blind eye to the facts.
And here's the point. The point is it's this roof analogy. You got a problem with your roof. Is it a leak? Is it a soffit? You hire someone to do the job and you expect them to perform. They fail to do the job. Mr. Pluta, Rick.
What's the relationship between the activities of these two engineering firms that you want to hold liable for the lack of corrosion control and the actions of the state employees, the few employees who are being held responsible for the lack of corrosion control?
Todd?
Sure. I just want to get your thought. You said, what's the relationship?
Yeah, that you've got these two engineering firms that you want held responsible for the fact that there's no corrosion control. We also have state employees who are being held responsible
Right.
for the lack of corrosion.
So, well, people had duties, right? And under employment, if it's with the state and you're an official with the state and you have a duty to the people, and basically as your job title, you enforce the laws of the environment, and you breach and violate those duties, I'm going to hold you criminally responsible. On this case, as it relates to professional negligence, you're hired to do a job and you hold yourself out to be a pro, then at that time I'm going to hold you civilly liable. And if you did something criminal and corrupt and I come to find out through the case, I will charge you too, criminally. But right now, we see in front of us, and the Attorney General, rightfully so, pulled the trigger to help the citizens of Flint and the state and the taxpayers to get the civil arena going as well.
Is there any sense that state employees were relying on the assurances of these?
Ask your question this way. What did they know and when did they know it? Right? And then look at the charges for which we had. When they know something and they lie about it, or they turn the cheek or eye and let things happen, I'm going to hold you criminally liable for it. So if a conspiracy comes out later on, fine. If that was the case, I'll charge it. Or Mr. Layton and I will charge it together. At the end, all of that, you got to understand this is a civil ramification. We see that this is something we can hold them accountable for, and we're going to go after it.
The criminal charges and the civil charges are complementary. They work together to find justice. That's what this is. Two teams pulling one wagon. This is about justice for Flint. Matt?
Yeah, so Land in the past has said that it was NDEQ and not the company that said corrosion controls were not needed. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Additionally, Veolia has said that they recommended $15,000 in added corrosion control, something that the city never did.
Well, of course there's going to be finger pointing, right? What would you expect? You know, of course, that's the guy over there that did it, right? So that will be ferreted out. That doesn't diminish the fact that they had a job, they had a duty, and they failed that duty and breached what they were supposed to do, and we're holding them accountable for it. Also, the MDEQ and government employees that committed crimes or were people that should have been on the watch that failed to do their duty, I'll hold them accountable through the Attorney General as well.
Jim Kirchner.
Have you established who hired these two firms? How much have they paid? Is Flint's emergency manager involved in hiring these two firms?
No, go ahead.
Both, aside from Land's initial involvement back in 2011, this is all detailed in our complaint, so you could follow up with the specifics later. Land's initial involvement in 2011 was prior to the emergency manager governance of the city of Flint, but back in 2011. But really, at all relevant times for the actions involved in this lawsuit from 2013 on, both of these firms, Land and Veolia, were hired through resolutions by the emergency manager.
Yes, sir.
We've heard multiple times about roadblocks popping up in the criminal cases. Are those roadblocks still there, and are you receiving all materials you need to proceed forward?
Todd?
I would presume your question to be, am I receiving all the documents I've requested? The answer to that question is no. Let me just say that one more time. No. But you can bet your bottom dollar I'm going to get all the documents. If I have to use whatever tool, right, I need to use, I will get all the documents.
Is there a specific agency holding these documents up?
I'm sorry?
Is there a specific agency or individual holding up these documents?
You know, I don't want to get into the thrust of it, Amy. I know exactly where you're going. I'm going to leave my investigation in the judge's chambers, and if I have to argue in court, I will argue in court. Expect this. If I don't get what I'm asking for and Mr. Layton doesn't get what we're requesting, we'll be in a courtroom holding their feet to the fire to give us the documents we need.
What are you asking for?
All of the documents that are relevant to this case, text messages, emails, voicemails, PowerPoints, everything you could possibly imagine. But I'm not going to get into the thrust of it. Just rest assured I will get what I'm asking for.
We had the governor say I'm being open and transparent. He did another email dump yesterday, and he's out there portraying himself to the public being open, honest, transparent. You're you're standing here saying that's not the case?
Let me just make sure that my word is unequivocal. I'm not getting everything I'm asking for. So,
Does this include the governor specifically, his office?
well, I will say this. I'm not getting everything I'm asking for as it relates to all agencies.
Is that a yes with the governor?
I would say you can rest assured that if I don't get from all agencies, governor included, what I need and what we have a right for, they'll be in court.
Todd, is there a deadline for that for you?
Don't mistake my kindness for a sign of weakness is what I say. So, yeah, as the Attorney General says, soon. I have petitioned. We will be going at it, and I'll be working with Mr. Layton as well on this same request.
So just to follow that up, Mr. Attorney General, again, going back to the governor, he's taken full responsibility about this, going back to the state address. You know what the governor knew, and when he knew it, and of course aides to him at this point.
We're in the middle of investigation, and I'm not going to, detail what our approach is and our strategy and what we know. Todd Flood answered a question about documents and information. We have not received everything we want. That was his answer.
Let me ask you this, Attorney General.
Yes, sir.
You say that you're two companies. 2 months ago, you said
Two what?
Two major companies that
Yes.
you're taking civil charges.
Today.
And of course, 2 months ago, you said there will be other charges.
Yes.
Can we expect other charges on both levels, criminal as well as civil, with other companies that you're looking at?
Yeah. This is wide open. It'll be complete, exhaustive, and without fear or favor. That's the point. The point here is that there's one system of justice in Michigan. It's not rigged. Doesn't matter who you are. Whether you're a big shot or no shot at all, they violate the law, there are consequences, right? And we established that several weeks ago, charging 3 officials. And I guarantee there'll be more criminal charges to come, and there will. Today we filed charges in terms of a civil suit to help the taxpayers and the citizens of Flint. And we're going to go straight ahead. We're going to follow the emails, and we'll go just where the truth takes us, period. Yes, sir. And there are no targets here, period. There are no targets. Nobody's off the table. We're just doing the job. Pretty much, Joe Friday, straight ahead, find the truth. That's the point. In terms of when charges might happen, I'd call it capital S, capital O, capital N. That's soon. Another, tricky legal term, soon. This again. There's no target here, and so there's nothing sinister. Nothing. We're just secretive. We're just doing our job. Period. That's what Todd's job is. That's what Noah's job is. Andy, Ellis, Dave Layton, our team.
I have a question.
Yes, sir. Please. I want to make sure everyone gets a chance. We'll be here a long time. I'm not going anywhere, so don't worry.
You made the remark a while ago that the declaration by General Motors that they couldn't use the water should have been the final DEFCON 1 alarm.
Red alert, yeah. Fell on, and that fell on negligent deaf ears. Yes, sir.
For everybody? I mean, is that sort of the date from which you almost start to see from that point on who didn't do what and why?
Well, there are a lot of important dates there, and it was significant that when General Motors says they can't use the Flint River for their industrial supply, bells should have been clanging, and that didn't happen. And we're just, these are charges concerning Veolia and land. That's what we're doing. Who hasn't had a question? Yes, sir, and I'll get back.
Engineering firms are facing dozens, even hundreds of suits representing thousands of people in Flint at the state and federal levels. What sets your suit apart from the other?
Yeah, both you guys.
There's been a flood of litigation, deservingly so, and some of it targeting these companies. The state of Michigan, though, is in a very unique legal situation and position to advance this suit. Unlike the individual plaintiffs who can recover claims for their personal injury, for the damage to their property, for the loss to their livelihood, The state of Michigan, and only the state of Michigan, can recover damages for the cost that the crisis has imposed and will continue to impose on the state of Michigan. And in no way minimizing the individual harms that residents in Flint have suffered. But the entire state of Michigan has been harmed by this. And to help Flint is going to take a state effort. We don't expect Flint to recover on their own, and we don't expect the citizens of Flint to recover solely through their individual lawsuits for personal injury and property damage. The state is going to be able to step up, help the entire community, and address really the kind of broader, more systematic public health implications of lead poisoning and what it does to a community.
I was just curious on that note.
Sure.
The legislature, just yesterday, the mayor's office said that they saw bids for the pipes and to be replaced, and they were too high, they can't afford it. Is it your sense that if the legislature spends that money, you guys, with this lawsuit, can recover it?
No. First of all, a lot of the focus of this lawsuit is on the long-term damage of lead poisoning, and the costs that are being discussed right now, either in Flint or in Lansing, are really just the tip of the iceberg. The cost of poisoning Flint with lead is going to continue to play out for years and decades. The expenditures being made in 2016 are really, sadly, just the beginning, and what we need to do as attorneys for the state is recover funds so that the state won't be burdened by these costs in 10 years or in 20 years.
Well, that's fine, but the beginning has to start now.
Absolutely.
They have to replace these pipes, and they need money to do it. So the question is do you think that the money that you hope to bring in will cover that cost? You said infrastructure.
Yeah. It would help, it would offset that cost, but I want to be very clear about something. We don't want the citizens of Flint to wait for the end of this lawsuit and for our recovery of damages from these companies before they start to get relief from the corroded pipes that are currently a problem in the city.
I guess the question is that it's not going to the legislature, that the legislature can spend money and get back.
Well, we're not into the politics business. We're into the business of doing justice. I wanted to follow up with your question, and I'm sorry. Simon, we stand in the shoes of the state, a very unique position. And as Mr. Layton said, as a prosecutor, we've filed nuisance abatement lawsuits all the time and forfeiture claims and civil claims. This is similar. We have a mighty stick, and we're here on behalf of the state of Michigan and the citizens of Flint. So that's what we're going after, is to help and buttress and make this state whole and this city whole.
But surely the insurance policies of these firms are only so deep in terms of their pocket. Are you
Well,
concerned they might be taking away some of the money from the contents?
No, I'm not worried about that at all. I'm not. That's not the issue for us. And the individuals have their own claims, and rightfully so. Yes, sir.
I just have a question for Mr. Hall. You have a long environmental specialist history with environmental law. Is there a case that you've worked on that Flint can compare it to, or is this something that, with what you're discovering right now with the negligence that you're alleging, is this something that you've never seen before?
Well, there are components of this case that have played out in the legal system before, but I've never seen all of those components come together in a crisis like this. First of all, the scope of the harm and the impact on the community we've never seen in Michigan. I was involved in the Enbridge oil spill in the Kalamazoo River in 2010, and I don't at all want to minimize that disaster, but the impact of that oil spill compared to the impact in Flint is apples and oranges. The public health, the harms to children, the cost to the society of what we're seeing in Flint, we've never seen elsewhere. In terms of the legal arguments, absolutely. All of our legal arguments are grounded very strongly in precedent that's been well established, the standing of the state to bring this type of action, the standard of professional negligence that was breached by these defendants, the elements of fraud that Veolia perpetrated on the city of Flint and the public at large. And what we're doing is putting it all together on behalf of the state.
And yes, Matt.
Did you interview any company officials as part of your investigation?
Can't get into that right now.
Did you subpoena
Go ahead.
any records? And it doesn't look like Land or Veolia specifically was called out for these accusations as part of the Flint independent task force.
Right.
So why do you think that was, and why do you think that your suit is legitimate if earlier investigations
We have
not
subpoena
pointed out
power.
these?
Yeah. Well, we do have subpoena power, right? So I'm not going to get into our subpoena power and what I've done on the criminal front. Mr. Hall, Gary, and Don have used all public documents. That's a pretty mighty task when you think about it, and all the reports and all of the work that the media has helped with to put a very solid lawsuit together.
Did you interview company officials?
I'm not going to get into that portion of it. It's not ethical for me to do so.
Can I make, I'm sorry.
There were internal civil investigations going on inside state agencies, including one that was going on inside of the DEQ conducted by Michigan State Police. You indicated to me that you thought that was a problem, but your response at that time was sort of lukewarm. A few weeks after that, you, Genesee County prosecutor, and U.S. attorneys wrote letters essentially saying cease and desist from those ongoing investigations with MSP, Auditor General, Inspector General. Certainly ratcheting up your tone. What changed?
I'm going to have David join me here in a moment as well. So please, thank you. You know, David and I, and also United States Attorney for the Eastern District, Barb McQuaid, sent a letter. It was a private letter requesting that the investigation cease and desist so that we would not jeopardize anything in our criminal investigation. You don't want the guilty to go free, right? And we sent a letter requesting that happened. The investigations have ceased, and we're going forward. But in terms of how it impacts the investigation, David, and the city's one?
Well, in any investigation, when you get multiple statements coming in, it's never good for an investigation. So, and we certainly wanted to be the ones we're conducting the investigation. These internal investigations, many times the statements are inadmissible. It creates all sorts of legal obstacles for prosecutors to deal with. So I signed the letter with the Attorney General. It was, as he said, a private letter. It got out somehow, but not because we wanted it to get out. That may be, but it didn't come from us.
Well, my question to you is what changed? You went from lukewarm to red hot.
I think I was always in the same temperature and working hard. Yeah. But anyway, good question. Anything else?
I will say,
Yeah,
let me just say that the one obstacle, the other obstacle that we were concerned with is when witnesses to our investigative subpoenas, and this Todd and I have had the same issue come up, is when we have investigative subpoena hearings and witnesses show up with lawyers paid for by the state, and in some instances the city of Flint. It was becoming a concern because some of them were saying to us, we don't have to answer your questions. And of course my response was, well, you're welcome to have a lawyer, but you do have to answer our questions, and anybody who's telling you otherwise is obstructing our investigation. Well, we're going to find out when we have the next investigative subpoena hearing.
Does the state obstructing your investigation then do what the state
If lawyers are advising witnesses that they don't have to answer questions of the Special Assistant Attorney General and the county prosecutor, that's a problem.
How many times has this occurred?
We're not going to get into the items.
5, 10, 50, 500, 5,000 times?
I don't think we should get into...
Somewhere in that range. He gave a lot of
right.
All right, well, listen, thank you very much. Appreciate you coming today. Thank you.
Thank you. Good job. Thanks, brother. No.
Yeah.